Most classroom disruptions don't come out of nowhere. They're triggered. Maybe it's a late pencil search, a messy transition, or just looking for supplies. Whatever it is, well, you're going to find out that with the right routines in place, you can prevent many of those behaviors, many of those disruptions from even happening because you're taking away the triggers that cause student behavior. I've been teaching for over 20 years now, and it's amazing how small little triggers can snowball into huge disruptions. We can't control everything, and students' behavior is ultimately up to the student. They make the choices. But what we can control is a classroom environment. What we can control are the routines we put in place, and what we can't control is trying to minimize those triggers that result in disruptive behavior. Now, I want to give you some practical examples of different routines you can put in place. Things maybe I put in my classroom that hopefully you can implement in yours, so that way you can minimize those triggers and that disruptive behavior. But maybe we should start with what a trigger is. A trigger is something that kind of sets the student off, or the students off in a certain negative way. So an example might be this. A trigger might be a student sharpening his pencil. And so it requires him to get up to sharpen his pencil. But on the way to getting up to sharpen pencil, he basically talks to a few students. And then as he makes it to the pencil sharper is going and it's disrupting your lecture. And then on the way back to his seat, he pokes a few students. All three of those things, first of all, are the student's choice. Don't get me wrong, they're the student's choice. They're choosing to do that. But all three of those things were triggered by the action of getting up to sharpen your pencil. So if you have a routine put in place to deal with that, to avoid that action needed, you can avoid all the other disruptions that came from it. So that is what a trigger is. It's that one little thing that kind of sets that snowball into effect. So the first routine I would highly recommend you get down and you have it set in stone in your classroom is how you start each class period. It is amazing how that itself sets the tempo and the tone for the entire period. So for example, for me, here's what I do, and please, you don't have to do this exactly, but you got to find something that works for you. You got to find something that will help you manage your class better and to avoid those triggers. So for me, what I do is, I'm going to break it down. Hopefully it's not too annoying, breaking it step by step. We have a 4-minute passing period. For me, I have my door open. Because if I have it closed, what I found out happen is the students are opening the door, they're banging each other with the door. Or a student may try to hold the door shut as another student comes in. And you might have a bottleneck going on at the door. So all those things start off the class wrong. Start with disruptions the moment a student walks in your classroom. So by having your door open, it's going to solve, eliminate, or even reduce the problems that come from students entering the classroom. The next part of it though, this is all part of my routine, and if you ever walked in my class, you would see me do this time and time again, is I stand right by the front door, not totally in the front door because I block it, not outside of it because then I can't monitor what's going inside, but I stand inside the classroom close to the entrance of the door. That way I can monitor and check the energy coming in. If a student comes in all hyper, I calm them down before they get past me. You know, it could be like, whoa, settle down. Or if they come in running, I'm like, whoa, stop. You know, or someone comes pushing and go, hey, no pushing, please. Right? So you can control the energy coming through your room and into your room. Because if they bring all that in, it's going to quickly set off the entire class. And then about a minute before the bell's going to ring, the late bell is ringing, I close my door. And the reason I do that, because it sends an urgency to my students. Because what will happen if I left my door open the entire time, late bell rings, I'm still going to have students coming to class, right? I'm still going to have students coming to class. And if I had to shut the door on them, then that doesn't look that good and everything else, and that causes an issue. So about a minute before the late bell rings, I'll close my door. Now, I'm still monitoring the door, and I might open it I'll open up for students that are still on time. But that is a way, once again, that little thing is a way of controlling who's still coming into the classroom as well as students being late to the class. And now the bell rings. My job here is to make sure the class gets settled in. This is all routines, because what I'm doing is I'm making sure Something small does not get into something large. And so I'll be at the front of my class and I'm just watching the class. And I have something, and you can check my other videos for this, I call it teacher versus student, but I give my students 1 minute to settle down, to sit down and to be quiet and working. And I am literally at the front of class just kind of looking at my clock or looking at my watch. When that minute after the bell goes, I put a mark on the board. I won't go into details about that. That's something you can look at some other thing, but I put a mark on the board. And students know that is a way of me signaling to them that they need to settle down. And then I'll wait about another 20 seconds. And if it's still not where it needs to be at, I'll put another mark. Another 20 seconds, another mark. Now, for me, this is for me, each teacher student. For me, my expectation is it should be 100% quiet. That's my expectations. Students should be working on the assignment, be 100% quiet. And so those marks are basically signaling to students that not everybody is where they need to be at. And the honest truth is this, 2 minutes in a class, I got everybody quiet and 90% of students are working. And the routine continues. Then from there, once a class is quiet, I then monitor the class. I go take care of my attendance. I take care of any issues that might be coming up. Student maybe raise their hand for a question, use the restroom, or sharpen a pencil, or something else of that sort. And the thing is, I'm able to monitor that. And so I usually give my students about 6 minutes to work on, I call it the warm-up of the bell ringer. So the 6 minutes allows me 2 minutes to quiet the class down, 2 minutes to do attendance, and then about another 2 minutes, 4 minutes, depending on how long I give them, to help or resolve anything that needs to be going on. What I want you to get from that is just to see how detailed everything is, just to see how much of a routine is put in place that eliminates any kind of issues. Because if I wasn't in front of the class, I wasn't by the door, you can quickly see students coming in, energy, disruptive, yelling, throwing things, and then that just goes crazy from there. I've heard this before and I still believe it's true. It's called the broken window theory, that if you let the little things go, they eventually get into bigger things. You let the broken window go, eventually it turns into higher crime. Same thing in your classroom. You let the little things go, eventually it gets to bigger. But if you develop routines, you're going to eliminate a lot of that. Another routine you want to make sure you have is a transition routine. A transition routine is basically how you go from one thing to the other. Because a lot of times what will happen, things will be going smooth and things are going exactly like you planned it. But when you got to transition from one thing to the other, an assignment or something else, that is when you're going to lose students, and you might feel that emptiness, or you might feel that time with students' behavior issues. So have good transitions, good routines for those transitions. For my class, I always give basically, for example, if I need them to work on an assignment. So let's say there's 2 parts of an assignment. As they finish up the first part of the assignment, I will pass out the second part of the assignment. So they're always working on something. You always want to make sure students are at least doing something with their hands, that they're not idle, because once they're idle, that's when you're going to lose them. So make sure you have a good transition as well. There are a whole lot more routines you can put in place, and I won't go through details on that, and you got to figure that out for yourself. But the last routine I would really encourage you to have is an end of class routine as well. Because you could put all this effort in to make your class go well, but the last 5 minutes of class, if you let go of the reins, you're going to find out the last 5 minutes might be your worst in the entire time, and all that effort you put into previously into that class goes out the window. And so you want to have some sort of closing or end of class routine. For me, what I do is this. About 4 minutes before our bell rings, I will tell students to go ahead and pack it up. Clean up what they got to clean up and everything else. But those last 4 minutes, since it is a routine, I'm able to monitor the class. And so it'll go like this. I'll say, all right, guys, we got about 4 minutes before the bell rings. Go ahead, count your points for your notes. That's something else separate. You can look at other videos, but have students count their points for your notes. I say when you're done counting the points, feel free to get up, put your notes in the bin, and go ahead and grab your backpack. And I give them 4 minutes to do that. And I said, remember, we cannot leave until I check the classroom. And so students will quickly count the points, they'll get up, they'll put their notes in the bin, and they'll have a seat. And at that time period, I don't go back to my desk. I don't just kind of just take it easy. I'm still monitoring the classroom, making sure nothing pops off. And then about 2 minutes before the bell rings, a minute before the bell rings, everybody's sitting down. Wonderful. Then I can check the room. I check the room for markings on the desk, trash on the floor, or something else. And then about a few seconds before the bell rings, I'll say, all right, everybody, we're good to go. When the bell rings, have a great day. And that'll be it. Routines are so important so that way students have a predictability of how they're supposed to behave in your class, as well as what they can learn in your class.